My name is Morna Gerard and I'm interviewing Janie Brodhead for Georgia State University's Women's March Oral History Project. The date is January 13th, 2018 and the interview is taking place at the DeSoto Hotel in Savannah, Georgia. Let's start with where you were born and the year you were born.
I was born in Portland, Oregon in 1954.
How did you get from Portland, Oregon all the way down here?
Oh, I had an interesting life. I was born in Portland. My parents were missionaries. I lived in Nigeria, and then we moved from Nigeria to New York City, and then to Florida, and then I went to school in Georgia, and then ended up falling in love and ending up in Savannah.
Wow.
So,
all over the place.
yeah.
Well, when your parents were missionaries,
Mm-hmm.
were they political at all?
My parents were very, they were fundamental Christians, but my father in New York City worked with the rescue mission work, and he was a medical missionary. So I feel like they really embodied, a good kind of like working with people. They were still trying to save people, but it wasn't quite the same as it is now with the fundamental Christians.
Did they support any political parties?
My parents were Republicans, yeah.
And
My father might not be today if he was still alive, but they were Republicans.
can you talk about your profession?
I was originally a teacher. I have a master's in education. I'm also Montessori trained, but I have been working with my husband owning a natural foods market, which is an independent natural food store in downtown Savannah for almost 40 years now. So,
What made you decide to do that?
we were young hippies, and we really believed in natural foods, and it just kind of all came together. I was at the point where I wasn't a good disciplinarian at that point in my life for being a good teacher, and I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and it was just the doors open, and that's what we ended up doing. And we've been doing that for 40 years, and it's been really wonderful. We feel like we're an important part of Savannah's community.
That's great. Yeah, Savannah is a really neat community.
Mm-hmm.
So, which party do you support, or do you support a party?
I vote Democrat. I would like to think of myself as an independent, but definitely I always think of Republicans being more the me party and the Democrats being more the we party. So I really think more in terms of like how we can help everybody. So I mostly vote Democrat.
Okay. Before the Women's March, had you participated in a march before?
When I was in high school, I was that was back in the 70s, early 70s. I did some anti-war protests in Florida, and then I've done things for Take Back the Night, for violence, and I've done some protests around environmental issues like rivers and things like that. Some things on Tybee for oil drilling. So, I've been active when I feel moved to be.
Okay. And let's talk about the night of the election in 2016, in
Mm-hmm.
November. Can you talk me through what you experienced?
Well, originally I had been a Bernie supporter, and then I really felt very strongly about voting for Hillary, and it was really hard because I saw so many people who I didn't think got the bigger picture, and when we started seeing the news and everything turning, it was really despair, because I really didn't feel like Trump was the kind of candidate who had a track record of being like a really good model for our country, and I was concerned about that.
And so, what was your mood when you went to bed?
I was hopeful that maybe I'd wake up and a miracle would happen. When I woke up, it was just it was despair, really despair. And that's what led me to the march, because I started talking to other women, and we were all so and one of my friends said, well, I think I'm going to go to Washington. I'm going to get a train ticket. And I said, I'm going to get a train ticket too. And that was kind of, I think what was amazing was I think it was all these people thinking, you know, because women do tend to be more like, let's take action, let's find the best way to deal with this. And I think everybody thought that, you know, going to Washington was one thing we could do with that despair.
And so I'm just checking my time. You decided Washington rather than staying here in Savannah.
You know, I mean, I think staying in Savannah would have been fine and would have been just as valuable, but it was kind of like the idea of what if so many women ended up there and everybody kept saying it won't happen, you know, and I just wanted to be one of them that did show up.
So let's talk about your trip up to DC. You went with your best friend?
Went with my best friend Mary, and it was funny because, you know, we had talked to some other people. In fact, I have a picture I can share with you later of, we got to the train station. There were so many people that I didn't know, so many people that I did know. I mean, these were people who had to kind of plan ahead of time to get a ticket. And Mary was like, come on, let's get a sleeper car so that we can, you know, wake up in the morning and be refreshed. And I said, okay, that'll be a great Christmas present for my family to give me. And so we all got on the train, and it was incredible because even the porters and the people who worked on the train were like, these are the most amazing people. And there was people all the way from Miami going and sitting, you know, having dinner with people and talking about it. And even we met people that weren't going to the march, but they were interested in what we were doing. I think it was an eye-opener for them. So it was really ideal for us because we left at 7 in the evening, got there at 7 in the morning, and could walk right to the spot that, you know, we felt like was closest that we could get to the stage.
And you were very glad you took a sleeper?
Oh yeah. It's like I'd never done that before. It was so luxurious, but I felt like I was, you know, just in, you know, being rocked to sleep, and it was really comfortable and warm. So it's really nice.
That's fantastic. So you arrive at 7 o'clock in the morning in DC. Can you talk about your journey from the train to getting to the rally?
Well, once we got in the station, we started realizing that there were a lot of us. It was really exciting. So there were people we were meeting from all over the country who had been taking trains, and they had signs and they were meeting each other. Signs like, you know, where they were from and people gathering. And then we walked, as we were walking to the place, it was just like there were so many women everywhere. And then we got closer to where we were, and there were women handing out hats. So I had one hat, but it wasn't a pussy hat, but it was, somebody gave me a hat in a plastic bag with the name and address and email of whoever had knitted it for me. So I did contact her afterwards and told her, you know, thank you so much for knitting me the hat. And, you know, it's a wonderful, you know, thing that we have that I'm going to pass on to my grandchildren, you know. But, so everybody at that point, people were just like putting on hats because they were handing out hundreds of handmade hats at that point.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and then we walked into the area, and I don't even know quite how quickly it all filled up, but it was very fast that all of a sudden we couldn't move. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was like I was next to a lamp pole, and we were kind of a multi-generational group, but everybody took turns leaning on the lamp post. Everybody took turns charging each other's batteries with their chargers. Everybody shared granola bars. I was standing next to a doctor from, I think she was from somewhere in the Northwest, and there was a nurse in front of me and a school teacher, and we all just started getting to know each other. And in the meantime, I was trying to get in touch with my daughter, who had come from Ithaca by bus, and her friend, and my phone was totally jammed. And there was no way. And I tried for a long time, and then I thought, you know, this is the most incredible safest group of people I've ever been with. And and one thing that I thought was so amazing was, every once in a while there would be somebody who maybe was having a hard time in the crowd and they couldn't breathe. You know, it's pretty panicky. If you don't think of it as a group hug, you could feel that. And or somebody had to go to the bathroom, and everybody would just turn their body sideways, and it was like fish going through a stream. I mean, I'd never seen. There's never one like, you know, you're in my way or I can't see or anything. So it was really amazing.
You took a sign with you?
We did. We had a panhandle sign, and mine was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I Dissent, which is proudly hanging in my dining room.
I think the Savannah signs were like one of the most impactful, sort of colourful parts. Like it's amazing just seeing photographs of them all together.
They really. And then they did take those signs and they put them at the Telfair Museum in the windows. At, I guess it was the Jepson at the Telfair. So they actually had the signs in the window of the museum so people could see them. And then after that, they had a gathering of people who had gone to the march and people who wanted to come, and it was packed, and people, the signs were all over, and you just had that idea of how many people there were. And people would say, I saw somebody with that sign. And when we were originally going to try to find the Savannah people and hook up with them, we couldn't do it. We couldn't move.
Yeah.
We just couldn't move.
But you were close enough to the stage that you were able to...
I could hear.
Okay.
And one of the younger women with us was, you know, they took turns climbing up the lamppost and, you know, watching. And there were the television screens that were big enough that I could kind of see things.
So, but you could hear some
of
the so were there any of the speakers that really stood out as being impactful to you?
Oh, there were so many that were just amazing. I mean, Alicia Keys was incredible. You know, they had, you know, I can't remember everybody, but they had, she's a rapper, starts with an M, what's her name? I don't know, somebody. She did a song, and then she brought up mothers, the 3 or 4 mothers whose sons had died from gun violence, and it's part of the Black Lives Matter. That was very powerful. There was a Native American group that spoke. Michael Moore didn't impress me that much. He was okay, but he just was kind of went on, and all of a sudden he realized he needed to like let some other people speak. But it was a good combination of music and, you know, I really can't remember. I think for me it was like sound bites of hearing the speakers or the music, but it was the story of all the people around me. That was so incredible. And also, I mean, when I realized, oh my God, there are so many women here. We really did do it, you know? That was just incredible. I was so honored to be there.
Were you aware, because all of us thought it would be pretty big, we hoped it would be pretty big. Were you aware at any point throughout the day, like, no, this is like beyond anything anyone ever expected?
I think so, because we would get kind of like, people would say stuff like, you know, the subways are jammed or, you know, things like that. So but nobody was upset. They were just excited, you know, that there were so many women there that cared enough to show up, and daughters and men too. I mean, it was just, you know, people who really, really wanted to make a statement.
What was the makeup of the crowd? Was it all like white people, or was there others as well?
There were, I would say the majority of people around me were white, but there were quite a few, like, met Latinos, I met Native Americans and African Americans. I know from Savannah there were African Americans who went. So I think there was, you know, definitely everybody was represented, but it was really, most of the people I saw were white women.
Okay.
And older, it seemed like. A lot of old. It's kind of like, you know, nobody's going to tell this grandma not to be there. So, yeah.
And what was the mood of the crowd like? Can you talk about that?
I think we were very hopeful and joyful, for the most part. Joyful in that we were so happy that so many were there, and we were hoping it would make an impact, you know. I really felt like if enough people saw that many women that they knew in their lives, grandmothers, aunts, daughters, sons, that they would at some point think about what the statement was. But, I'm not sure. I think, and I don't know how much of an impact it did make, but I think it did. I'm not sure.
Everyone had reasons for choosing to march. Like there's some there are issues that are really important to you. Was there one or two reasons that really compelled you to be there?
Well, I think for me it was the fact that there was so much the campaign, there was so much disregard for women and for women's rights, and as a mother of a daughter, as a mother of a gay daughter, I just felt like I had to be there, and then also being a grandmother, thinking about the world that I wanted my grandsons to be in, and now that I'm seeing the impact of how much environmental protection is being taken away, I'm even more glad that I was there, because at least, we were talking about, opposing, the president at that point. So women's rights were a big thing. Also, I was really concerned about the whole immigration policy, the build the wall. I just don't believe that that's the America that I represent. And that was the main thing, was I felt like I was being a patriotic American, speaking for the America that I want to see happen. And we had just come out of such a dignified, wonderful presidency. It was just like whiplash, and I can, after President Obama went the first time, I had to take a day off from work. I just kind of laid on the couch and was like, we finally turned the corner in social history, and I think that momentum was still with me, that we can't go back, so those were the main reasons I was there. I felt like we had to keep that momentum of a kinder, better world, more inclusive, and a better world for my grandchildren.
So you had your Panhandle Slim sign. Looking around you at the march, were there any signs that kind of jumped out as being like, oh, I really like what that one's saying?
There were great ones, but I can hardly remember them. There's so many. There are amazing ones. I'm trying to think. I mean, there were a lot of ones like, stay out of my uterus, or keep your hands off my body, or things like that. There were good environmental ones that I wish I could remember. And I wasn't photographing either. I was more part of the experiencing at that point.
Yeah. What about the chants?
There were great chants. A lot of them were fantastic. I can't remember, but the thing that's really stuck with me that I go back to now, I didn't actually hear this one, but I heard it later on after it, was Milk's I Can't Keep Quiet. Yeah. So when I'm really kind of feeling like I need to be energized, I listen to it and I play it for people, and I played it for my husband and for my sons, and they're like, whoa. And that and that was the kind of energy that represented, was that.
Very much so. So, did you see any protesters?
We hardly had a chance to move. At the very end, which was probably, so we were there starting at 7:38, and we probably got to start moving like baby steps at about 2:30. And that was kind of when the rally was, winding down a little bit, and it was really baby steps. My idea had been we would be marching down the streets of Washington, but we were in basically a traffic jam where we couldn't move, which was fine. And I think that most of the time people would say, they'd see my sign and they'd say, oh, don't let Ruth die, we need her too much, or we love your sign, or we saw some signs from Savannah, that kind of thing. There was, I think, one protest thing that we went by, and everybody was in such the loving mood. It was just kind of like, we love you, and then it was just kind of nobody. And the police were all very pleasant. We never encountered, but I think a lot of us felt really empowered. I felt empowered by my age. It was like, you can't mess with me. I'm 63 3, you know? So, you know, just try to do something, you know?
Yeah. Now you said that the police were friendly. Like, did you see many of them?
No, no. Mostly just when we were leaving, you know, kind of directing people. I mean, we were desperately trying to find a bathroom by that point. And we finally went to the train station, and it was, you know, they basically had to direct traffic to try to get people to the bathrooms, you know. And it was, but everybody was really polite, and I think I'm not positive if this is true, but I think that we at some point just said, well, can't we use the men's bathrooms? There's more of us, and I think that did happen, but I would have to qualify that for sure. But, you know, there was just such a group of, so many people had to go to the bathroom. You know, that was a big problem.
Did you manage to hold off throughout the rest of the day?
Yeah, because you're taking like tiny sips of water and eating little bits of bars, and you know, I wasn't ever tired or anything. It was just incredible. I'm so thankful I got to be there.
At any point throughout the day, did you get emotional?
I think when I started hearing some of the speakers and just looking around, you know, definitely there were you felt tears, and you know, just the people that you were meeting, and it was that more of like being humbled by the power of all these women believing that they can make change. That was emotional.
Mm-hmm. And what about your friends and family? Was there anybody who were, before you went, were like, you shouldn't be doing this?
No, everybody was really proud of me. My nieces in Maine and their mom, they marched in Portland. My sister and my niece were marching in Providence, Rhode Island. My neighbors that, you know, I'm close to were marching in either Atlanta or Savannah. And, you know, everybody who I knew, and people are still surprised. They're like, you went to the march? It's like, yeah, I did it. Yeah, so.
It really did feel like an accomplishment, didn't it?
Yeah.
And so you did march. How far did you get when, you know, because some people we went as far as the White House?
I think we were near the Capitol. We didn't walk that far. I mean, we walked as far as we could, but then we wanted to make sure we got back to the train station in time. So we marched probably from about 2:30 to about 4:35, and then walked back to the train station. So, and really, you know, we couldn't look at our phones to tell us where to go. We really just had to, you know, try to figure it out. So, but it was kind of like following a wave of people, and you know, we definitely were marching, and there were people who were beating drums, and we were doing slogans, which I can't remember right now. So, I mean, we got a little taste of it, but you know, I don't think that it wasn't like you had the media coverage where people are watching you march, you know. It was more just being in this, I just call it a group hug, just being in this huge jam of women.
That's the best term, the group hug. I'm going to use that. I think that's great. So you got back to the train station. Talk about the mood of the folks there, because they're all, I guess a lot of people were travelling back that night.
It was all just really kind of like, almost like a feeling of empowerment and hope. So I think everybody, there wasn't anybody who was regretted going. Everybody was just so thankful that they were able to be there. And getting to know the women that I was with, I mean, I knew them, some of them on a periphery, you know, that we had kind of stood with. There was one daughter who, she's a school teacher, and she'd be a great person to interview. But she was great at kind of gathering us all together. Most of us were about the same age, you know, in our 60s. But, you know, we sat down and we had some dinner before we got on the train, and everybody just was really thankful that they did that.
And were you very glad to have a sleeper on the way home?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that was great, and it was interesting. We sat we had dinner, and we sat with a gay couple. There were two men from Savannah who went because they were concerned about rights for gays and lesbians. So it was that was really nice to meet some other people. So and everybody, and we did talk to people on the train. People asked us questions if they weren't part of the march. I mean, there were people who were definitely curious because you kind of sat. There was not enough room for everybody to just pick who they wanted to sit with. So it was a nice opportunity to talk to people.
You said that you wore a pussy hat.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about the whole sort of symbolism of the pussy hat?
Well, I think that we were trying to remind people that Trump actually said that, grab him by the pussy, and we were. I liked it. I liked the idea of the playfulness of the pussy hat. I love the idea that women were crocheting and making them, or knitting them, and I didn't find it offensive at all because I think it was a reminder. I mean, the hat's on a statue in my house now, so I don't. Maybe some people were offended by it, but if they were offended by it, then good. Maybe you should realize that the president shouldn't be saying that, and that would be my answer to people. I think the thing that I came away with from the march that to me has been so profound is that I used to be, I still am, but I always tend to think about other people, how am I making you feel? And this has just been happening recently. I have one of my sister-in-laws who I'm close to, but she's very conservative, and she's also, I've found out, very, racist against Muslims and things like that. And so I went on a family trip, and I can't keep quiet anymore. When she said, my husband and I were going to go to Morocco because we were in Spain, and I said, well, we're going to go to Morocco. And she said, well, why would you want to go to a Muslim country? And I said, that's why I want to go. I want to experience a Muslim country and Muslim culture. And we basically had like a real head-to-head. And in the past, I would be the one to back down. But I did after, and this was at Thanksgiving dinner, afterwards, when she was leaving, I hugged her and I said, I just want you to know that you're better than what you said. And that's why I had to lash out to you. And we've had other encounters, and every time, that's what I try to tell people. When I come up butt heads with you, it's because I believe in you and I think you're better than that. Because I really think that we're in a culture of bullying, and people think that they're empowered to say things that the social norms wouldn't have allowed you to do that before. And now they think they can, and I'm not going to keep quiet. And that's what I came back with.
Mm-hmm. I'm always a believer, it's like if you don't say something, it means you agree.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And can I live with that?
Yes.
But I think a lot of people are a lot more determined not to be quiet these days.
And well, I'm a Quaker, so one of the things that I believe in is trying to find consensus and a meeting ground with people. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me right now is the division, because I'm always trying to think like, how can because you're not bad if you're a Republican, or if you're, as long as you have, you're caring about issues that impact everybody in a thoughtful way, then I can live with it. Maybe you think financially this is what the country needs or whatever. But if it's just plain meanness, or if it's really gonna affect generations to come, then I have to speak. But I've been trying to find a way to say to people, I hear what you're saying, but I can't agree with it, and this is why. And sometimes I can't stop there. I have to say stuff like, this is, and we're Americans, and I have a right to have my opinions, and you have a right to your opinions, but we have a president that doesn't want to listen to mine, and that's not politically correct. And some people can stop. You can stop at that, and that's where I try to stop. But I can't keep quiet, and that's unusual for me.
Yeah. There's been a change.
Yeah.
So when you got back to Savannah, your husband was supportive, I presume, of you going?
Oh, he was really, I think a lot of the men in my life wish they could have been there, He was so totally supportive and so thankful that I went. And my sons, I have 2 sons, they were great, I think if anything, a lot of the men in my life were like, I wish I could have done that too, because they're just as distressed. I mean, my husband, his thing is climate change. He can't sleep at night because of that sometimes. So, and he loves the women in his life and he respects them. I'm very fortunate that way. So I think he would have liked to have been there.
So you were very comfortable being able to talk about your experiences when you were there?
Yeah.
When you finally got sort of back home and started looking at the news, did you like what you were seeing?
Well, I think that was very early in our presidency. The track record is now that, there's a denial of when he was trying to pretend that more people were at his inauguration than Barack Obama's, that was the tip of the iceberg. And then nobody was at the Women's March. They all love me. That was just so ridiculous. And even right now, I was telling a friend of mine, I said, if he was one of my students or one of my children, I would have him in timeout. This is inappropriate behavior. And, it's this whole last thing that just happened with him calling African countries shitholes, and then all these Republicans not saying, yeah, I heard that, and not speaking up, to me says that we're allowing a kind of whole, society and atmosphere that is really very frightening. And but the problem is that we have people listening to Fox News, we have people listening to MSNBC, we have people on Facebook, talking about their stuff, and then there's people on Facebook talking about how from their viewpoint, and we're all in echo chambers, and we're not finding any kind of way that we can kind of mesh ideas or see other viewpoints, and I'm very concerned about that. I mean, I don't think Donald Trump he's more a symptom of a real problem, and who knows, what's going to happen with this whole thing. But until we get enough people voting Democrat and getting rid of these Republicans, all these Republicans are thinking that they're taking care of their base. But if we can get enough people going the other way, then they're going to go oh, well, maybe I did hear shithole, and I don't think that's appropriate. And now that we're thinking people like George Bush and, Romney wouldn't be that bad, there's a huge change in our thinking. And what is it? It's because they're civil, but we also have to think about why this happened, and, I think it's really easy for people to have intellectual talks, but then are you ignoring people who feel like they're not educated or whatever? So, there's really a lot of work to do in the Republican and the Democrat Party, and maybe we need another party, I don't know, but there's something that has to happen. It's a huge shift of what's happening right now, and I don't see, until we find some common ground, I don't see any hope.
Since you got back from the marches, have you participated in any other protests?
Well, I was at a candlelight vigil, what was that one for? I think it was, Mary talked about, and I can't remember, my brain's gone blank. But yes, I have. I'm part of Pantsuit Nation and Savannah Taking Action Against Resistance Stars. So when I'm able to, I do go to things. There's been some vigils in the park. I wish I could remember which one I went to, but it was. And then also what I do every day is, to me, we are a store that is very inclusive. It's pretty much the fabric of our store. So I feel like a lot of people feel like they can put stuff on our bulletin boards, they can come in and talk about it. you know, people back when we first opened, people would say, oh, I'm just so glad that I'm from California and I can come talk to people or whatever. So, you know, I think living your life in a way that follows your beliefs is really important too. But yeah, and I am going to go to the march next week here in Savannah, and there, you know, when I can, I definitely go to things.
It's great that you actually own a store and
Mm-hmm.
that you can provide a public space that reflects your approach to the world.
Right.
You know, it's like it says it's a safe and healthy place
Mhm.
for people to come
And we
shop.
have, you know, people who definitely are very conservative, and they're to be treated with respect too. Yeah, but they don't work for us.
So, thinking about, you know, we're a year out now
Mm-hmm.
from almost a year out, or a week to go from the inauguration. How have you been, like, as things have played out, what's jumped out at you as, like, you know, things that have kind of shocked you or
I'm surprised at how many environmental things have been dismantled. The EPA and all of these things that have been put in place by Republicans and Democrats that I felt like were making a safer, better world. I'm surprised at how quickly the tax stuff has gone. I'm really confused about what's going on with healthcare. I mean, my family is struggling at different, my young, you know, my children are trying to figure out how they can get health care coverage. And, you know, I feel like there's just this huge, I don't even know if it's being done because it's really being thoughtfully done. I just feel like they're trying to do that big, like, backlash very quickly.
very quickly?
And, you know, I don't, you know, I always thought that there would be certain things, like I felt hopeful when the judges would stop things, but now this whole deportation of Panamanians and, not Panamanians, El Salvadorians, I just feel like, you know, there's so many things that are happening so quickly that people don't quite know how to react to it. And, you know, I am concerned about people getting numb, you know, by it.
Well, let's because it's very easy to get overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
and to get burned out. There's just so many, like, issues that we're dealing with
Mm-hmm.
almost every single day. How do you think people can prevent themselves from burning out, from sort of becoming completely numb?
Right. Well, I think, you know, of course it's always starting it for me on the personal level, the way you raise your family, the way you talk to people, the way, you know, in my own family, when I see something that I feel like I need to be vocal about that way, but then also in the community, you know, not being afraid to speak your mind. And, you know, I'm very concerned about oil drilling off of the coast of Georgia. I feel like we're very endangered. For some reason, Florida got exempted, maybe because, you know, they say their tourism matters more, but is tourism the driving force of taking care of our environment? So there's just so many things. So for me personally, it's kind of like picking the things that I have to work on. I can't do it all. And, you know, I would say that probably, you know, I think the fact that I feel very comfortable telling anybody that, you know, you do realize that President Trump, even though I never call him President Trump, but that if I'm talking to somebody that I'm trying to impress, that their character is very flawed and it's not, you know, appropriate, the things that he says and does. I mean, I feel like I should be able to say that to a conservative Christian, and they should be able to agree with me. If they don't, then we need to have a bigger conversation. So for me, I think the things that I can work on is trying to find the common ground that a lot of people can't seem to work on, you know, because we have to somehow get along, you know. And, you know, I don't know, so environmental, gay rights are very important to me. the, taking care of each other. And then I'm very concerned about the immigration. I mean, as we own a natural food store, so it's really interesting. We can't get tofurkey deli slices right now, which is one of our biggest sellers. So I went online to look about, I thought it might have been because of the fires or the mudslides or things. Well, true, they're having problems in their plants because of that, but the second biggest talking point of why they can't get that product to us is because they don't have enough workers. And, I think we have to get our figures together and get our information together so that when I don't say people, why don't we have tomatoes? Well, we don't have enough people to pick them. Who's not picking? Well, there's no legal, workers that we can get right now to pick the tomatoes or the peaches, and I think that once these things, it's going to have a domino effect. I mean, once that the tax stuff starts really showing that, it's not helping, the trickle down doesn't work, be able to say this is what's happening and not forget. We have to, and the same thing with healthcare, we have to say, well, you don't have insurance and you're going bankrupt, that's because you voted for Trump.
So between now and November, because we have a midterms coming up this year, so within the next 11 months, if you're thinking in like cup half full sort of ways, what do you hope might happen?
Well, I'm hoping that there will be more people coming into politics that really do have integrity and really care. I mean, we've gone from a community activist to a narcissistic TV person, so that's a pretty big swing. But we really need to have people who really deeply care about politics and that are willing to not really look at the party lines so much as and even if they're Republicans. I mean, if there was a really good Republican that I believe really spoke his mind and really was, willing to go across both party lines, I would vote for them, So, and I think we really have to just stay vocal and keep talking. I think that that's going to be happening more,
I hope so. On the flip side, within the next 11 months, what do you fear the most?
Well, I fear more of this climate of meanness and bullying and that I really think that we're going so far back in racism and women's rights. I just fear those people being empowered, and I don't really feel like there's that many of them, but I don't know, It's like people are coming out of the woodwork and you're like, oh, so that's the way you really feel. So I fear that, but I really am extremely concerned about the environmental impact, because that's some stuff you can't really go back on. And I am concerned about healthcare because I think that it's going to really financially wreck a lot of people, especially young people. I'm concerned about, student loans and people who can't pay them. I mean, I feel like we're really getting more of the have and have-nots. It's getting much bigger. And I feel like people are feeling oppressed and like they don't have a voice. And I'm not sure how that can rise up, But I do feel hopeful that I feel like the media is still plugging away and announcing. It's just that these other people, and I don't know because I don't watch Fox News, but I'm not sure how that is playing out.
Well, there's one person on Fox News, I think, who calls it out when he sees it.
Yeah.
Shit. Something. I can't remember.
I don't know.
But he is like, I don't know how long he'll be there.
Yeah. I keep hoping that NPR is balanced enough so that I get a little bit of other people's opinions. I mean, they do try to do that. That's pretty much all I listen to is NPR driving in and out of work.
I think that's the safest thing.
Yeah.
Looking back at the march itself, was there anything that kind of surprised you about your day or the march itself?
I think the main thing was just I had no idea the magnitude. You know, looking at my phone and seeing it so totally jammed and everybody else, and I thought, that's because there's so many people. That's never happened to me. And thinking, I can't get in touch with my daughter. She's fine. I knew and I knew that wherever she was totally fine, you know, and that was such an incredible feeling, because normally you look at your phone, you can't get through to your daughter, you'd be like panicked, you know, so that was an incredible experience. And then, you know, just knowing that was history, it really was.
You said you talked about your daughter. Did she enjoy her day? Did she have an adventure?
She loved it. She tried to get to the Savannah people, and then that was impossible. And she was supposed to go back. She was coming from Ithaca, and she had come on a bus with a group of people, and she was supposed to go back with them, and then she just got in touch with them and said, you know, I'm not coming back on the bus. She ended up staying and getting a ride and going to Philadelphia and then taking the train, and you know, it was just kind of like she didn't want to leave, you know, early, because a lot of people had to leave like earlier, you know. So it was a really empowering day for her too.
And if you were to sort of meet somebody who's thinking about going to a march coming up, what would your piece of advice be to them?
Well, comfortable shoes, bottle of water. I mean, we pretty much carried everything very light. So, but you know, having protein bars, you know, just because you never know how accessible. We weren't able to get food. I mean, we could have if we had left, but we wanted to be where we were. And I think just being open to whatever happens. You know, I think some people probably it was too many people for them, and I know some people got scared because just, you know, some people like to be with a lot of people. I grew up in New York City. I love a crowd, you know, where other people would be almost terrifying. So, you know, I think that if you expect that there could be a lot of people, it might not be so bad.
And this crowd was just so...
Oh, they were so great. Yeah.
It was all just like everybody's your mom, or
Yeah.
your sister, or your cousin, or your, you know, your best friend.
Yeah. Were you there too?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the best day.
Yeah.
Best day ever. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to talk about?
I think mainly just that, you know, I've mentioned it before, it's just that I think that, you know, even if you don't go to the march, you can feel empowered to make a difference in your community. But I think it's like you said, you know, not saying anything is like, you know, the worst thing. And I think what's really important is that we're in an atmosphere where, you know, there's been times like even in the grocery store, I just got this feeling like these people there's like a Hispanic family, and I thought people might do something that, you know, I just felt like I needed to be closer by to say something. And, you know, I do feel empowered by my being older and being like a member of the community, but I really feel like I want to be watchful for those things and somehow find a way where I can tell people that's not right, you know. And I think we really have to be vigilant about that, and it's really important because I think we're in an atmosphere of like, you know, a meaner society and a racist society.
When most of us went to the march thinking, we're hoping that would be the sort of start of something big that would kind of, there'd be some momentum. A year out, do you think that is actually the case?
I think that there's, you know, when I go online, I feel supported and hopeful. You know, Pantsuit Nation's great because you just see people from all over the country with their stories. And, you know, it's hard for me because I kind of live in a little bubble in the South where I get to work with mostly people who agree with me and customers who kind of agree with me or, you know, whatever. But I'm not sure if I worked in other areas, if that would be the same kind of thing. But I do feel hopeful. I do feel like everybody really wants the best for our nation and for each other and for our families. And I think if we just try to keep on that level of like, you're better than that, our country's better than that, have conversations like, well, when you're talking about making America great again, like what grade are you talking about? That's something a line I've tried to do. If you're talking about like going back to like segregated lunch counters, that's not my country. That's not great again. If you're talking about, oh, you want more farm communities, you want to be able to have, some people yearn for these times that, sense of community that I think some older people say, I can understand that. How are some ways we can do that? I mean, those are the kind of conversations we have to have. We can't just be divisive. We have to find a way to talk to people. And I think, for some people that's a harder thing to do, but I think it's really important.
It's great that we have people like you willing to have those conversations.
We'll try, but it's hard, because a lot of times, just a couple of days ago, one of our neighbors, his wife passed away, and she was a really great lady. And so they came over, it was a snow day, and he came over, and we were playing board games with him and having supper, and the kind of thing you do as neighbors. That's the kind of America that I believe is great again, you care about your neighbor. And I said something about Trump, and he said, oh, I like Trump. And I said, everybody at the table, my kids and everybody were like playing, bingo. We're not going there, we're not going there. And I said, well, you know how I feel, and we won't go there, And so, but, he cares about me, I care about him. Those are the things that matter, It's this division of people not caring about each other that's really bad. And I don't know if, right now our politicians care about anybody but their corporate entity of whatever they're creating. And one other thing I do want to say as a missionary's daughter, and a father who was he probably would have voted for Hillary in this last election, and my mother would have been appalled at, somebody who was that crass. My mother was 45 when she had me, but I think that, there's a civility that we're lacking right now that I think that we need to remind people about. That is really important. But I also feel like things like, I haven't done it yet, but I am going to write like Franklin Graham a letter, because I think his father was better than he is as far as his political agenda. And just say, you're the reason why a lot of churches are dying out, why they're turning into restaurants and bed and breakfast and things. People are not going to church because you started telling people how to vote at the pulpit. And that has nothing to do with religion. And I feel like really this whole, evangelical, political thing is just all tied into money and politics too. And it's a really frightening thing. You look at people like Jimmy Carter, who, is such a good Christian. I'd love to go to a Sunday school class. These are the things that we have to weigh out in our society and talk to people about. Is this the same thing? How can you, send Christmas stocking boxes to kids in Haiti and then say, support a president who says, shithole country, So, I think we just have to have conversations, as painful as it is, and it's our place to find civil ways to do it.
You're the right person to do it. I think with your sort of spiritual background and your sort of loving heart, coming at it with that kind of approach is a much more palatable way for
I try to, but sometimes I can feel my blood rising, and I could say something really, because I'm not. It's been humbling aging, and it's been interesting watching my daughter, who is very much like the hot-headed person I was and still am in a lot of ways, and trying to find that middle ground, because she's so totally, you know, so far more liberal than I am in so many ways, and trying to understand it from her viewpoint has been good for me too. So, but.
Well, we need more people doing what you're doing. And with that, I want to thank you for being interviewed for this project.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It was fun.
Yay.